Flack math! Give me some math and I'll give you some flack. Flack math!
All right, lesson 19, not noting. I said, because we're talking about exponential notation, I said lesson 19, but I was getting ahead of myself. Sometimes that happens. Audrey, you're so understanding of my issues. So, all right, so you guys have done this where like you can break down a composite number into a product of primes. Remember factor trees, good times. But this is really just 2 times 2 times 2. If you were to break it down, this is what you'd end up with. Or just 2 to the 5th, right? Where this guy is our base, this guy is our exponent, and then 32 would actually be the answer to that x. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Okay.
I like your hair.
Thank you.
So this guy is basically the 5th power. So the answer to this exponential notation is the power, or the 5th power, okay? Oh, where are you, mouse? All right, so this is review. You guys know this stuff. So we would say this is 2 to the 5th power. There's lots of different ways to say this. 2 raised to the 5th power. It's real fancy. 2 to the 5th or 5th power. Right? Oh, that's what I just said. 2 to the 5th, you could drop the word power or raise to the 5th, and people would assume what you're talking about. All right, so the 5th power of 2 is 32. 2 raised to the 5th power. So usually when you have a positive number raised to a positive exponent, you get a positive power, or positive number. So far, so good? All review, right? Okay, so here is where it gets a little tricky when you start doing negative numbers. Now, sometimes the negative sign is part of what you're multiplying by itself, okay? But sometimes it's not. There's an order of operations, and negative signs come after exponents, unless the negative sign is in parentheses. Just like always, parentheses always come first, right? So if the negative is in parentheses, then that negative needs to be raised to that same power as well, okay? The exponent applies to both, but I'll show you some examples. Let's start with this one. So let's say we've got negative 3 to the 4th. Okay, well, what is being raised to the 4th power? What is that 4 being applied to? Just the 3, okay? So that means this negative is part of the next operation, okay? So that means this is negative 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is, you guys know what that is? 81, right. 9 times 9 is 81. So the answer is negative 81. Okay? So this is what got me. When I taught for a few years out of college, and then I stopped for a while, and then I got back into the game. That's what we call it, the game. And this is what stumped me. I forgot this, because that just looks like -3 to the 4th power, right? This is not -3 to the 4th power. This is -3 to the 4th power. You hear the difference? All right, it's time to eat, Grandma, is different than it's time to eat, Grandma, it's time to eat, Grandma. We're not going to eat Grandma. Punctuation is very, have you heard that before?
Yeah.
It's time to eat, comma, Grandma is very different than it's time to eat, Grandma. Okay, we're not savages, so use correct grammar. All right, grammar, Grandma, never mind. Okay, now this is different. Now, this time you do the exponents first and then the negative sign. But what do you do first? You do what's in parentheses first. -3 to the 4th. So this is one problem. These are different problems, different math problems. So now it's -3 times -3 times -3 times -3. Okay? So what's this answer going to be? Just plain old 81 or positive 81. Oops. See? Talking. Writing. Okay? Different answers. Now, this is usually an issue only when you have even powers, right? Because if you did -3 to the 3rd, well, that's -3 times 3 times 3, which is -27. But -3 parenthesis to the 3rd is still -3. There's still an odd number of negatives, so it's going to be negative anyway. So when you have an odd exponent, most of the time you don't have to stress about the parenthesis, the negative inside the parenthesis, or the negative outside the parenthesis. Okay? But when it's not, when it's an even exponent, pay attention to where that negative sign is. Okay? All right. So you're gonna either mess this up, which is what all students do, or it's gonna slow you down a little bit. So make sure you be careful with these problems. Okay? All right. So let's try some examples. So here's example 3. Let's try to simplify this. This is just what we've been doing, just order of operations. Let's see what you get. All right, so try that on your own here. Just give me a nice number. Well, I have a sip of coffee or two. It's satisfying when it would be a very mean thing to do to like play 7 out of the 8 notes of the octave, you know, the scale. End on that 7th note. You want it to finish.
There's only 7 notes total.
Yeah, but one of them, like if you do a scale, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is the octave. You see why they call it an octave?
Well, if you think about it, it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So it's just saying do twice. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1.
Yeah, that's how Miss Family teaches it.
The what?
That's how Miss Family teaches it.
The 7 notes? Yeah. Well, you're playing 8 notes in the scale. But when you practice the scale, you're playing 8 notes. But yeah, there's technically just 7 in the major scale. Sometimes I do that. Don't be alarmed. Okay, what'd you get?
Negative 32.
Negative 32? Is that what you got? 22?
Negative 14.
Negative 14?
Negative 22.
Negative 22?
Negative 22.
Negative 22? Lots of negative 22s. Zan, do you want to change your answer?
No.
Do you want to bet a prop? I'm
not doing that.
Okay.
No.
All right, let's see. Okay, what'd you get for negative 3 to the 3rd power?
Negative 27.
Negative 27. Did you guys say negative 9?
Yeah.
All right. There's where we got Nathan. All right. What about negative 3 squared?
Positive 9.
Positive 9, but we're subtracting a positive 9, right?
Yeah.
And then plus, what's negative 2
Positive 4.
squared? Positive 4. So we got negative 27, and then I'm going to say
Plus negative 9.
plus negative 9, so negative 36 plus a positive 4.
Negative 32.
Should have bet that problem set.
You said no.
You said I'm not going to do that again.
Okay, well.
Dude, you're like, sometimes you're the only one who has the right answer.
I have that answer. I just
Did you?
didn't say it because I was scared.
All right, that's okay. That's all right. You gotta stand up for what you believe. If you believe it's true, stand up for the truth.
I believe in my fear.
Okay. All right. So, good job. Some of you. I mean, no. So this is the common mistake, guys. This is what you have to be careful. So where did it happen? Did it happen like right here? Did you say plus 9? What'd you do? Is that what you did? Did you say plus 9 instead of minus 9? Well, this is positive 9, but you're subtracting positive 9, which is just adding the negative 9. Okay? Does that make sense? All of you negative 22ers? Does that make sense where it happened? Okay. All right, let's try one more example and then we'll move on here. Example 4.
Noise.
Okay, try this one. Redemption.
That's a lot.
It looks like in my notes I put an answer and then I changed it a year maybe. So maybe I was telling people the wrong answer for a year or two.
Wait. Can you move? Out of here? Okay, I didn't mess that up.
I might have corrected myself.
Got an answer.
Okay. Guys need more time? Ready? Okay. What'd you get?
102.
Okay. 102. 122. 98. This feels like the price is right, doesn't it?
No.
Okay. Maybe not to you. Any other answers? We got 3 different answers. It's not a good sign.
I don't know how, but
You got negative 30?
38 somehow.
Negative 38, okay.
It could be wrong.
All right, well, let's see what happens. So how do you simplify this expression here? What do you do first?
Negative 2 times negative 2.
No, this is 2 times 2. Just that. Remember that exponent only applies to the 2.
I did go wrong.
Okay, so that would be negative 4. Now, over here, you do the parentheses to the 3rd power. But since it's an odd power, you get the same answer anyway. So negative 3 to the, what's negative 3 to the 3rd? Negative 27, don't forget that negative. Okay, what about negative 2, parentheses, squared?
Negative 102.
This is positive 4. Okay, so those are what we did first. All right, everything else I'm going to write down, I'm going to copy down. So the negative 4 times this, negative 2 times this, minus 2. So the only thing we did was the exponents. Okay.
Me too.
Anybody want to change your answer?
Yeah, I just added a negative sign to my answer.
You did?
I'm,
Well,
wait,
it's not that simple.
I'm not changing my answer. It's probably wrong, but I'm just gonna.
Okay, so now what? Well, now we do the multiplication, right? So what's 4 times, yes,
I'm changing my answer.
what is it?
94.
94, okay? So what is this? We have to do this, right? What is that?
Same. Change my answer.
108 or something?
Yeah.
Is that right? So that's negative because 4 times negative 27 is negative 108. All right, and then this is just 8. Okay. Everything else we're going to copy down. Negative 4 minus 2. Okay, let's chicken scratch.
Yeah.
I'm going to chicken scratch. Doing it. Bok, 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 bok. So now we have, let's see, negative 14 added to a positive 108. What does that give us?
Negative 90. No.
94. Yeah. So I changed it in my notes. I must have thought this was like a 2 here.
Okay.
What was your old answer in your notes?
It was negative 50. And I'm wondering if that was a 2 or something. I don't know what. No, that wouldn't have made sense. I don't know how I got a negative 50. But the first original answer was 94. And then I changed it to negative 50. And now it's back to 94. These are difficult, right? It's the concept, the single concepts on their own are fine. But trying to apply it to a math problem and remember the rule gets a little challenging, okay? All right, let's move on. What's the opposite of exponents? Or what's the opposite of finding powers?
The thing. I don't remember what it's called.
Inverse operation. Like if you square something, 3 squared equals 9, right? What's the opposite operation? How do you go backwards? What's that?
It's where you use like thing.
Huh?
Looks
Square
like
root.
Roots, yeah. So powers and roots, okay? So roots,
Didn't we go over this?
last year.
what?
But
Yeah, last year, yeah.
not last year, but like this year. We went over this.
Not recently, right?
No.
So, yeah, we are gonna go over it more, but as it applies to algebra as well, it's good to kind of refresh our minds here. So roots are the inverse operation inverse op of exponents or powers. So, for example, 3 squared equals 9. The square root of 9 equals 3. So, you're basically taking your answer and you go back to where you started. That's an inverse operation. Okay, but look at this. What is the square root of 9? Is that the answer? 3? There's another answer, isn't there? Look, because 3 squared equals 9, but also negative 3 squared equals 9. So anytime you take the square root of something, there's 2 answers. There's 2 roots. Okay? What's the square root of 4?
4 negative 4.
What?
2 and negative
2 and negative 2. Okay?
You said 4. You confused me.
Okay, so 2 and negative 2. So there's always 2 roots. What's the cubed root of negative 27?
What?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. There's only one cubed root. Always. Just like there's only one 5th root. Only one 7th root. But there are a couple 4th roots, a couple 6th roots, right? And there's always 2 even type of roots. And there's only one odd root. Okay? So, what's the square root of negative 9?
3 negative 3.
So 3 times 3 equals negative 9?
Negative 3. No.
Negative 3 times negative 3 equals negative 9? Yeah, so it has to be times it exactly the same, right? It can't be 3 times negative 3. So this is impossible. This is not a real answer. This is, if it's not real, what is it?
Undefined.
Well, it's not quite undefined. Think SpongeBob. If it's not real,
imaginative.
it's imaginary. Good. Imagination. This is not real. This is an imaginary number, and that is such a thing. We're going to talk more about these in Algebra 2, but this is an imaginary number. Seriously, that's a thing in math. Okay?
Oh, so it's like if a girl gave a guy a fake number.
Yeah. Like square root of negative something. Yeah. Imaginary number. Okay. So negative 3 is not the answer. 3 is not the answer. So every even root has a positive and negative root. But if I just say, what's the square root of 9? You can just say 3. Okay? Now, if I say, find all the roots. So here's question number 1. So find all roots of square root of 9. Then it's 3 and negative 3. Okay? So we're not going to try to trick you and say, oh, you forgot the negative root. No. And if we do something like this, negative square root of 9, well, that's just negative. Square root of 9 is 3, so negative 3. Okay, so when I want the negative root, I'll put a negative sign in front of the radical. Okay? All right, we'll get into more of that a little bit later, but all right, try these real quick. Here's example 5. We're going to do 4 right away. You can do these pretty quickly. Okay, I want you to find all roots. Well, no, just answer the question. I'm not going to say find all roots. Just Just answer the question. Yeah.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yep. Okay.
You just answer the question.
All right, go as fast as you can because I want to know what your immediate answers are. Okay.
I'm not going as fast as I can.
So 5, 4, 3. I'm probably confusing you by counting the numbers.
Not really.
2, 1. Here we go. What's the square root of 64?
8.
8. Now, if you put 8 and -8, I wouldn't count it wrong, right? But if you just put 8, that's fine. Unless I said find all roots, then you need to say 8 and -8. Okay, what about the 4th root of 16?
2.
2.
Negative.
Anyone say 4? All right, so that's a common mistake, especially that 4. It almost looks like 16 divided by 4, which is 4. But yeah, it's 2.
Can't -2 be 1 as well? Because
Yes, it can. If I said find all roots, then -2. So I wouldn't mark it wrong if you said -2 as well. What's the cubed root of -27?
-3.
-3. That's right. It's not -9 or anything weird like that.
Cubed root of -27.
Uh-huh. Is that a 3? That's a 3 there. Cubed root.
That cube is what?
What? So cubed, like you can do the square root, and then the fancy word, you could say 3rd root or cubed root.
Oh.
So that's just a fancy word for 3rd root. Okay, and then what's the negative square root of 81?
9.
-9. Okay, so this one, I don't want 2 answers like -9 and 9. So this is me saying I want the negative root of 81, negative square root of 81. Okay, and then you're going to get this in your homework where you're going to evaluate. Remember, evaluate means assigning value to something. So you're going to evaluate powers. So I'm going to give you a variable expressions. So here's example 6. A equals -2. So what is this? A squared. -A squared. -A cubed. Parenthesis -A cubed. Okay, see if you can do that quickly. All you're doing is plugging in -2 for A. So what do you get?
+4.
You get +4 here, right? Because this is -2. Remember, when we're plugging in negative numbers, put it in parentheses. And when you put it in parentheses, oh, this is one where the negative gets squared too. It's not just -2 squared, it's -2 squared. So that would be 4. Good. What about this?
-4.
Right, because if you plug in -2 for A, then that's what you're squaring. So you'll get a -4, and so there's your answer. Okay? What about -A cubed?
-8. Wait.
Right, because this is -2 cubed, so this is -2 times -2 times -2. That's 3 negatives. So -8, so that becomes a +8.
That's confusing.
Yeah. So write it out. It's confusing, especially if you do it in your head. But sometimes it's less confusing if you do it in your head. So do it both ways. See what you get. So this is negative. In parentheses, you got negative. And then A is -2, so -2 all to the 3rd power. So let's evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. What's -2?
+2.
+2, and then you have 2 to the 3rd, which is
8.
8. Okay? All right, there's a few more examples. We have time. I'm going to skip to example 8. There's an example 7, but you can look at that in your book if you want. Here's example 8. Ready? PM squared minus Z cubed. Okay, P equals 1, M equals -4, and Z equals -2. All right, evaluate that. You can try it in your head, try it on paper, see which one has more success. P M squared minus Z cubed. Okay, how we doing? Ready? What'd you get?
Positive 24.
Positive 24. Any other answers? You're gonna go with positive 24? All right, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So you got 1, plugging in for P, M squared, so M is -4, so I'm going to put that in parentheses, -4 squared minus Z is parentheses -2. Okay? Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's evaluate this. What do we do first? We do exponents first. So we're going to do that guy, and we're going to do that guy. Everything else is staying the same. This 1 stays the same. Whenever you have a 1 times something, you can really just ignore it. Okay? So don't really worry about that, but we're going to copy it down anyway. What's -4 parentheses squared?
Positive 8.
Positive 16.
I got positive 16, but now you're confusing me.
This is minus
-8.
a -8.
Okay, so I got.
So that's where you get a plus positive 8. Okay, so you got 16 plus positive 8, which is 24. Okay, awesome. Good? Yeah, so see how the detail, it's the devil is in the details, they say. This is where it'll get you if you're not paying close attention to the details, okay? So let's move on to lesson 20.
Flack math! Give me some math and I'll give you some flack.